Let's get into this conversation now. It's been a long time coming. You remember the last deadline extension by the federal government was until March the 31st. And now we have what we have on our hands now. So let's get into this conversation. How far so far? Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo joins us this morning in our studio. He is the National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
We also have Engineer Benga Adebayo, who is Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, Alton. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, we saw your the press release from your association. We want to first of all clear, have your members started implementing the directive of the federal government?
Yes, we have started. Since we received the directive on 4th of April 2022, we have started.
One would expect that there's been a lot of feedback from subscribers. What's the response been from your members?
It's been a lot of pressure at the various experience centers. There's also been a lot of pressure on the systems. It has been a lot of concerns expressed by members of the public to our various contact centers. So it appears that the heat is coming to all of us at this time. Unfortunately, like you have said in the opening remarks, we've been on this now for 14 months. Many people didn't respond to the call to link their SIM with their NIN. And so we are where we are. But certainly the last 24 hours has witnessed enormous pressure at the various operating centers for the various members of our association. So the times are difficult, actually, I must say.
Just to also be clear, what is the process of barring these lines? Do you have the service providers doing it individually, or everyone has done it? Is it an incremental process, or everyone is on the same page right now?
We are all on the same page. It's all networks in one network. Since the directive was received to bar outgoing calls for those who have not linked their NIN with their SIM record, we have done that, and it's been done across all the networks.
No one is left out in this. No one is saying, well, let's hold off a bit.
No. We are a highly regulated industry, and upon receipt of the regulatory directive to that effect, we have since complied.
Pardon me, just to clear the air, because a lot of information going back and forth. When was this complied with? Was it on the 1st of April, or when exactly?
4th of April. 4th of April.
On the 4th?
4th of April. Yes.
So that's 2 days ago?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So let's come into the studio now. I know you've had your reservations about this whole process from the scratch, even before the scratch, but does that remain for you, the reservations you've had? Are they still the same today as it was in the past?
Yes, stemming from the fact that a number of subscribers are still not linked. And again, you see, when you look at the entire process, getting to the NIN centers, particularly in the rural areas, I'm yet to see whether the NIM-SIM, the Nigerian Identity Management Commission, has, put in NIN centers in all the 774 local government headquarters. Particularly, for instance, there are some states that created more local governments. These local governments, how would the man in the rural area travel from one place to the other to go and do the SIM linkage now? And if it is, for instance, where they have these NIN centers in the local government areas, it will take some time. I mean, these people are, rural dwellers, and they need time. For instance, they have to travel from one place to the other because they want to link their SIM to the National Identity Management Portal. So there's a whole load of issues surrounding all this.
But you're also aware, Chief, that it wasn't only the NIN centers, the NIM-SIM offices, that this activity could have been carried out. There were times when they had a number of agents running into, hundreds of agents that they could do this with, including the telcos themselves.
Thank you very much. I've been to some of the telcos. Thank God Engineer Adebayo is here. Some of the telco centers, the experience centers, cannot do more than 10 in one day because of issues surrounding the uploading and the capacity of NIN-SIM to actually, get uploaded. A number of issues, and government should actually really address this. Go to these centers. Only about 8, 9, 10 weeks ago, the whole thing crashed for about 3 weeks. Nothing was able to be uploaded. And these are issues still surrounding these NIN things. It's only about 14, 15 months old. Remember when we were, asked to do our SIM registration at that point in time? They started the next 6 months. Here we are today. It took about 3, 4 years, but here we are today. But 15 months is too premature to now start saying.
I don't know.
And at that time, we were only about over 100 million subscribers. Now we're about 197 million.
Well, Chief, this is where we are now. And this matter isn't new to every one of us. And these issues that you're raising now, are they issues that have been raised before? Most certainly we'll take them up with Engineer Adebayo, but are these issues that have been raised before and no action was taken, like the one you are saying now that telcos could do a very, very minimal number of registrations in a day?
The issues are still, honestly, the same.
Were they raised with anyone? Were they raised with the telcos?
We can only complain, like we've been complaining. It's left for government, for instance, to, in fact, sit with the telcos. For instance, at each 3 months extension, telcos, the government should say, Minister Pantami should understand that he meets with the telcos. What have you been able to do? What percentage? What can we do? How can we get these people, the subscribers to get registered? Again, all these national orientation agencies and agencies of government, what have they been doing? Have they been enlightening people up to the rural areas? There are more questions than answers.
Let's try to get these answers. I know that there's a chain. So we, the subscribers, and I say we, interestingly, there's the service providers, and there's the government championing all of this. But let's go to Engineer Adebayo and get a sense. So complaints about uploading, first of all. Excuse me, and listening to the subscribers there trying to link it. Some have had issues since last year, October, trying to upload, come back today, come back next week. What exactly is the problem with uploading? Is it from the service providers? Is it from where the database is warehoused? What exactly is the challenge here?
It is not a problem from the service providers, but I'd like to put the issues in proper perspective. In the first instance, we all have national obligation to enlist ourselves at the database of the National Identity Management Commission. That's what government has said. Government has gone a step further to say you must now link this national identification number with your SIM card records from the operators. Deadline has been set. Was set prior to 2020 when the minister gave the ultimatum that it has to be done before the end of December. And we've been on it for almost a period of 4 years. Now, between December 2020 and now, we've had about 8 different extensions on the turnaround for this process. And so it's been a lot of time and also has been a lot of work. We have worked together in one digital ecosystem with the National Identity Management Commission. And part of the problem we identified in the early days was that NIN-SIM is not able to cover all parts of the country. And the Honorable Minister then directed that telecom operators should be allowed to capture data of citizens as most and all of their experience centers. By that, we increase the spread of the point of access. In essence, not only in NIN-SIM offices, but also at the center of the operators. And like you also said, a number of agents also work for NIN-SIM. So there has been a number of access points in the last 14 months, which we expect that people should have been able to take a turn, take a queue, and have this done. That's one point. The second is that we capture the data as telecom operators. We do not generate the NIN numbers. So you go to an experience center, you capture the data there. We send that data to the systems of the National Identity Management Commission and expect them to generate the NIN number and then confirm that to the subscribers. That's not in our control as service providers. So what we should do now at our end, we are doing it. Experience centers are capturing data. Information is being provided and uploaded to NIN-SIM. What happens at the NIN-SIM end is absolutely not in our control. And so if you see any bottleneck today, I make bold to say it's not on the side of the service providers, but rather this is something that we need to challenge NIN-SIM to see how to resolve. So it's a lot of work in progress. Unfortunately, the time passed and it passed very quickly. As it is in our character as a people, we will not respond until there's a deadline. And that's why we have the amount of pressure that we now have. But there are ways around it. Once you have the NIN numbers, there are different mechanisms by which this can be linked to the NIN card. You don't need to the SIM reg. You don't have to go to the experience center. You can do that virtually. You can do that using the mobile apps. You can do that using dialing a code on the operator's network and all that. So I think the challenge we have at this time is actually in having the NIN-SIM generate those numbers, not necessarily the problem of access or having those numbers uploaded and or integrated into the operators network. So it's not on our desk. I'll say that it's a task for NIN-SIM, and NIN-SIM has to find a way to crack the hard nuts.
And no doubt this takes its toll on your operations. Yes, it is not a challenge with yours, on your side, but it takes its toll. So, and I'll ask the question my colleague raised earlier about, having a conversation. Is it with the ministry? Is it with NIN-SIM? What are the issues? Because, the telcos are techie people. I imagine that you can bring to bear some sort of, experience, equipment maybe, and help generally. So has there been like a discussion saying, well, these are the issues we have noticed for 14 months. What can we do to resolve this? Or what is being done to resolve this? Because it is understandable that millions of Nigerians will throng. So we need at least a system that has that much strength to take in all of that pressure.
Yeah, there's been lots of conversation around this, and we have a joint industry working committee that is interfacing with the two regulators on our side with the NCC, and also on the other side with NIN-SIM. And we've been together on this digital ecosystem committee addressing the challenges. And really and truly, we've done all that we can in supporting NIN-SIM in this regard. But the problem is not just in all of this that we're talking about, is that people didn't respond appropriately in the last 14 months. It's more of that, actually. I've been to a few of those centers at times. They didn't just have anyone to attend to. So I think it's more of a behavioral problem on our side that's now led to this escalation that we have. Certainly the problems are known. We've identified the problem. We provided intervention at different times as an industry, and at the various level of our different members, they provided some form of intervention to support the agency of NIN-SIM. But the fact remains that people didn't respond on time when they should respond. And we are now where we are. We just need to do all that we can to make it easy for everyone. Let's look at the greater good. The greater good of this is national security and to have credible and reliable national database. And we all must buy into that directive of government. So in all of this, where it will be painful, it will be difficult, but it's something that we must embrace, all as citizens of Nigeria and as those who reside here.
Okay, we'll definitely take on that security angle in the coming, segment of the program, because it's also a very important one. But quickly on the side, before I come back to Lagos studio here. So what happens with people whose lines have been barred that are still trying to, get maybe registered or link it? Will they be restored afterwards, or this is gone for good or for bad for them now? What happens?
Once they are able to produce their NIN number and present that to the service provider at any of the access and or contact point, whether by virtual means or by way of uploading it on the app, the services will be restored. But I must say that no service will be restored unless there's a provision, unless by provision of an NIN number. There will be no partial lifting of services until people provide. Those who have been barred now, until they provide the NIN number, there will be no lifting of services, unfortunately.
Speak to the issue that Chief Ogunbanjo raised earlier, Engineer Adebayo, when he said that, well, as you also, underscored, one of the main issues is that the telcos and those agents do not generate NIN. So, in other words, they are still not registered. So it means that even the intervention of getting agents isn't answering the question or resolving the issues as raised by Chief Ogunbanjo. Is that correct?
Yes, because we don't generate the NIN number. All we do is to capture citizens' data and upload it onto the NIN-SIM database. So the challenge in actually getting a response to that effect is on the systems of NIN-SIM, not on the side of the service providers.
So while on one hand, government made this effort, it's on the other hand, it is still at the foot of government to ensure that whether or not people get fully registered as they should, because the intervention is just to take a first step and eventually still get back to the NIN-SIM offices. That's what you're saying.
In essence, yes, but also we take responsibility as citizens. We've been 14 months on this journey. People could have done better, actually. All of us could have done better. In spite of almost at all time when you make a call on any of the operators' network in the last 14 months, you get some form of SMS alert saying to you, link up your NIN with it. In essence, you get some form of indication to say that in case you haven't done it, you get a reminder, please go and do it. But 14 months has passed. We all looked at this as if it's just a wish, and now the reality has come to us. So we can blame government, but also we share in this blame as citizens as well. People didn't respond enough like they should have done in the last 14 months.
Okay, well, I'm sure Chief Ogunbanjo will respond to that in a moment, but the numbers that are barred, it's only outgoing calls from those numbers, not calls going into those numbers.
Yes, outgoing calls from those numbers. That's the directive as it stands today.
In other words, those numbers can still receive calls.
Yes, they can. That is the directive as of today. Outgoing calls are bad, but they are able to receive incoming calls. So by that, they still have some means of communication, and so there's still a window of time within which they can normalize the NIM and SIM linkage records.
Okay, we'll follow up on that shortly, but Chief Ogunbanjo, you want to respond to the issue that as far as he's concerned, and you would agree with him that 4 years plus 14 months is quite a length of time.
Well, quite honestly, give it up to the telcos. Your first call every morning, they will always tell you you have to link your blah, blah. Your first call, if you notice, every morning they will remind you. But when you now go to the NIN-SIM centers or the NIN centers, particularly NIN-SIM offices, it's unfortunate that a lot of racketeering is going on. I'm sorry to say this. If you must get it within 2 or 3 days, you must have between 5 or 10,000. There are agents, you go there, it's open. They're not making things easy for the subscriber who wants to really register, link his SIM with NIN. And they say this thing is free. He gets there, he wants to do it, and he's seeing that 1 or 2 people are paying. He doesn't have money, he goes back.
Is that an issue that has been upscaled, taken up with the administrations? I can confirm what you're saying to an extent. The last time I went to the NIN-SIM office to do some work on my identity, some guy at the gate was asking, making inferences. And I reported the fellow instantly to the NIN-SIM official that I found there, and he called an NCDC official and had that guy arrested immediately. So that's why I'm asking, is this something that was escalated, that people should escalate these issues to the people that will resolve the issues for them?
Well, now that the die is cast, I think we need to now say it as it is, because now a lot of subscribers are deprived. NIN-SIM centers are our problems as we speak. Telcos, no issues, they will do whatever after the NIN. But those NIN and NIN-SIM centers are the headache. You are always there. When you go there any day, there are touts that work for some people who are in the NIN office, I mean the NIM-SIM offices. And if you don't play ball, in quotes, you are not going to get anything done. And if you now want to do it normally as it is, using the word normal, it will take weeks and sometimes months before anything is done. And you may not even get anything done.
Let me get this right.
It's a problem.
You do agree with him when he said, well, there's the attitudinal part of this as well. People not going out enough or on time to get this done. I mean, I think we can own that
to some extent.
To some extent.
Yes.
But the challenge now is, the process itself. If you want people to indeed be willing to go, just like election, right? Make it easy, make it smooth, so that they can. But there are different layers to this. So there's the NIM-SIM offices where you can get this done.
Yes.
There's the telcos, the service providers, and then there are the agents. Now these agents, I think you have to pay them for you to go through this process, or is it meant to be free as well?
Is actually meant to be free. Yes. It's actually meant to be free.
We listened to one of them. He said he paid 3,000 to one of the agents, 2,500 again.
That's what I'm saying. If you don't pay, you don't get anything done. Whereas the process is supposed to be a free one.
So NIM-SIM, telcos, and even the agents should be free.
Telcos, go to any telco center.
Of course, that's free.
No problems. Free, and they attend to you pretty well. But the agents, but how many of us as subscribers now go to the telco centers? And when they do, so many people are there. So they are left with whether to now queue for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, man hours wasted, or go to the ordinary NIM-SIM guy who now is demanding for X amount of money. If you want it fast, within 3 days, you go to Alausa at the NIM-SIM office. If you want it within 3 days, pay 10,000, you get it.
Sorry, Cardi, but you see, we can't absolve ourselves at all. Not completely. We can't absolve ourselves at all. If any human being, any Nigerian had a problem with a SIM card, he knows all the things that are connected to it. His bank records and everything is connected to that one. A number of other issues, that he has to deal with are connected to those ones. So you solve the problem whichever way. That's why one of the things that I take away from what Engineer Adebayo has said, if you have a challenge with a SIM, with a number, with a line that is important to your business, you resolve the issues no matter what. I saw a joke just earlier today of someone who says that the line that he uses to make transfers has been bad. I mean, that kind of thing, for instance, you want to ensure that that kind of thing doesn't happen to you. So wouldn't you say that people who really, really want to get this done who go the extra mile?
That's exactly. That is what it is. Because if that line is so important to me and I must link it with my NIN, even if he tells me 10,000, I'm ready to pay. So
that's where the problem is. It's also part of taking responsibility to ensure that those things don't happen. If it is supposed to be free, it should be that kind of thing should be escalated to the authorities to let them know that these things are happening. I'm sure as president,
encumbrances are put on your way. I mean, you've been there. You haven't gotten anything done in 1-2 weeks.
But there was no encumbrance on my way when I went there. I went to the same Alausa that you're talking about, and Alausa is not the only one. There is a 39-page document on the website of NIM-SIM that tells you all the agents and all the centers all over Nigeria that you can get these things done. So if there was no encumbrance for me to report the fellow who tried to connive with some people and some agents elsewhere, and this person, by the way, is another, security, an NCDC official, he was arrested immediately by his bosses. So I think it's for us to take the courage to take responsibility as Engineer Adebayo is advocating.
That's it, all of that, because I want this service. It's disturbing my business. And I've done it 2-3 weeks, no result. And I go there again, they say, okay, give me how much? Well, maybe for the sake of my business, I want to pay whoever that says I can do it.
I think this is a microcosm of the society we're in, the challenges we face. But let me take this to Engineer Debayo. You know, my colleague was asking about, you know, the whole generation of the code and all that, how it's a challenge from the NIN-SIM side. But do you think that this process would have been easier if the telcos could actually maybe generate that code themselves and perhaps warehouse some part of it and have a central database? Would that have made the process easier?
Yes, it can, but you know, by law, we are not identity management companies. And you see, the law establishing NIN-SIM is quite clear. NIN-SIM is the only agency of government that is allowed to process and warehouse citizens' data. So the best we can do is to collect and to send it to them. We are paid by the experience of the subscribers, no doubt. We do have historically experience with SIM registration, which we did as an industry for many years, and it was quite successful. And when we saw the bottleneck in the late part of 2020 when got the Minister gave the directive, we approached the minister through the NCC, our regulator, and asked that we can intervene by way of bringing to bear our experience with SIM reg to capture citizens' data. And rightly so, the Honorable Minister granted that. Otherwise, the situation would have been a lot more difficult today if the data is not, if operators are not able to capture citizens' data to support the work of NIN. Although the argument is also that you have an experience center almost in all local government areas of the country. And I think that has helped to a large extent. Now, on one side, we all can blame government to say government didn't do this, government did that, government did that. The first question I will ask is, where have you been in 14 months? This is the first question I will ask. But again, it is what it is today. The fact remains that government has now given the directive that this has to be done. So the best we can do is to continue to appeal to people. We are overwhelmed at the various experience centers. I don't know whether you have seen some of the reports. I mean, some of it also came on channels about the experience at the operator centers. It's quite tasking, actually. We are also concerned about safety of workers, safety of people. We're concerned also about the welfare of subscribers who come and queue and yell in the sun, some of them climbing the rails and all. It's very, very worrisome. We don't wish we are here, but it is what it is today. We all just must do what we can to make this better for everyone. So we are providing this feedback to government. We are giving government the appropriate feedback through our regulator on the real-life field experience. But the request is not to have the ban lifted. The request is just to see what kind of optimization can be done at the points of bottleneck, part of which is at the end of NIN-SIM. So we are doing all this. We can only appeal to people to continue to at least take their turn on the queue, be patient, follow instructions at those centers to make it easy for all of us. The kiosk will not help anyone. The more orderly we are, the better. So we are as concerned as you all are. We buy into the idea of government. We are supporting government in this and on, like we always do in all cases. And at the end of the day, we are looking at the greater good. So we continue to appeal to everyone to please do the best that they can to make it easy for us. Our operators will continue to capture data. We'll continue to work with NIN-SIM to ensure that the integration is done early enough and verification is done early enough. But citizens also must support us by way of being a bit orderly, take their turn when they should, and follow the instructions so it can be possible. But certainly we don't expect
just
that
before
government will again.
Yeah. Well, my apologies, Engineer Debayo. Just before we take a break at about 8 o'clock, there's a question that my colleague raised earlier about that conversation, that review process with the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy about the involvement of telcos concerning the process of, capturing data and registering Nigerians and all of that. The laws are clear, just as you have said. But was there any conversation that came out of that process, that review process that says, we have a bottleneck here. The challenge here is the back-end integration at NIN-SIM. What was the resolution? Or what were the issues that were raised? And how can we resolve that one as quickly as possible so that we can get this issue, back, done with as quickly as possible?
Yeah, operators can't warehouse citizens' data. So the best we can do is to work with NIN-SIM to unlock the bottleneck. That's the best we can do, and that's all we are doing. So we can't warehouse citizens because by law we are not allowed to do it.
Well, I take that, Engineer Adebayo. Just one second. We'll take a short break now, but I agree with that. But we know that there are some data that are warehoused with you, with your members. When I register my SIM card with you, it is with you. Maybe some other data that's supposed to be with NIN-SIM, those are the ones. But we'll talk about that a little more when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Well, Engineer Adebayo, maybe you want to help us in this part of the conversation about the data that your members, the telecom companies, warehouse, and the ones that cannot be warehoused by law with your organizations.
All right. Part of the information we explore, part of the process that we explored in the commencement of the exercise in 2020, when we came on board in the digital ecosystem with NIN-SIM, also see the adaptability of the SIM card record with the NIN-SIM record. And NIN-SIM told us very clearly that the number of fields captured during SIM registration is not sufficient for citizens' identity management. For example, the number of fingerprints captured is not the same. In essence, the biometric is more extensive for citizens' identity management. A few other fields that are required for citizen identity was not part of what was captured in the SIM reg. In essence, the SIM reg record data was sufficient for the purpose for which we need it, but it doesn't qualify for citizen identity management, and therefore they are not the same. They are not the same quantity of information required for identity management. That's what we've been told, and so what we have is what we have. It's only suitable for SIM record management and not for identity management.
Oh, I'll just quickly go to a realm which has been spoken about. We'll still touch on that in the other segment, but it's regarding security, because this whole NIN-SIM linkage was, part of the solutions, as it was said, to insecurity in the country, having to maybe locate criminals and terrorists, through the cell tower they're using, listening in maybe to their conversations as well, or even depriving them of communication, which is, barring them if their SIMs are not linked to their NIN, which will mean you need to get their details and biodata and all of that. But it would seem there's been a lot of controversy around that lately, especially with the recent spikes in security. Would you attribute that to this whole, extending the deadline, or perhaps this process or this database not being used as it ought to be used? What exactly, what challenges would you say are on your end?
Well, those are matters of security, and always when security matters are involved, there are many things that we don't know as ordinary citizens. Also, unfortunately, there's more report about the negatives than the successes achieved by the security agencies. And we must always, at times when we have opportunity, to commend those who work 24/7 to keep us safe, those who keep themselves in harm's way to keep us safe. So to the extent that we can, we are providing all the support that we should for security agencies. And really and truly, this SIM record, this SIM linkage has helped in a number of ways. It has helped in really number of ways. Unfortunately, insecurity is what it is. Always when there's an incident, there's more report about it than when there are failed attempts. So what I would like to say is that helps, that's helping. And I think the idea of government in having this process concluded is helpful. And we all just must embrace it, again, in the interest of our own safety and national security.
Well, in that statement you put out, I don't know, just a moment, let me come to our studio and ask if Chief Ogunbanjo would like to respond to that, because I know this is still in the news, actually, insecurity and how this can help. Would you say that so far it has done much? Because he says that, well, nobody talks about the good side. It's only when bad things happen that people raise it.
Well, insecurity is really a serious problem as we speak, and it's disturbing everyone. However, government is also not making things easy, or particularly the agencies. For instance, all these things we're looking at depend on telco services. Now, Engineer Adebayo knows this. There are threats now that 7,000 masts around airports across the country may be pulled down because of NCAA issues. Kwara State, because of right-of-way issues and looking at telcos to pay more taxes to Kwara State government, are threatening that, sorry, they are going to shut down telco services in Kwara State. Some time ago, some states of the north totally shut down. These are challenges you can call hiccups. However, how do we solve this? That is why we are saying, look, government should sit down maybe on a monthly basis. Telcos, what have you done? What can be done? How do we sensitize our people? Now that at least we've seen only 2 days of shutdown, of ongoing calls, we can see what it has cost to the subscriber. So let us appeal to government. Government, do one or two things. Let your agencies that should the National Orientation Agency, all that, let them start doing something so that the average person is aware, and then the rural populace should also the rural population should also know some of these things, right, and ensure that some of these centers are at least in all the local government headquarters, and tell them where subscribers should go to do their NIN-SIM linkage.
Clearly a big role for orientation agency to play here. But let's get into another realm of this conversation. And I'd like to begin with Engineer Adebayo, because this concerns not just me, but millions of Nigerians. And that's the quality of service. Personally, I've had, the past few days have been terrible for me as a user, one of the service providers. I make a call, in 10, 15 seconds, I stop hearing what the person on the other side is saying. And, that keeps happening. And I'm talking 4-5 days now. And that's the experience of a lot of people. For some other people whose lines are not barred, by the way, you'd understand if the lines are barred, but not barred. They can't use the USSD services and all of that. What exactly is going on? Is it that in the process of trying to bar some lines, you mistakenly touched some other, subscribers? Or what exactly is happening?
Well, I think I'd like to throw more light to what Chief Ogubanjo just said, and then I'll relate that to what you are saying. By the way, the state is not Kwara, Chief, it's Kogi State. And you may have read in the report last week some of the challenge that we face in Kogi, which has now put Abuja and a few other states around Kogi at risk of a telecom blackout because of the behavior of government of that state due to revenue collection, and now they're shutting down sites and arresting those who work for telecom services. This goes to a bigger issue of the behavior of people in government, particularly if we talk about keeping the networks optimal and keeping the networks working. What we face in terms of site outage by way of behavior of agencies of government who are trying to collect revenue from operators has significant impact on quality of service. And it happens so in many states of the Federation. So it now depends on where you are and what is the point of impact and how that affects you. That's number one. Number two, there's also the issue of damage to cell sites. Vandalization has been now on the increase. This has become a major attraction for people on the cell site. So people actually go to attack this site for reasons of stealing diesel from there. Vandalization of the energy stations, the batteries powering the power inverters and UPS systems is now a major problem. Because of the problems of our public energy supply, inverter has become on high demand in the market. Some of the batteries stolen from telecom sites are sold to the open market, and innocently people buy this for use in their homes. So these are some of the problems that we have, and know that they have the impact on quality of services. So it depends on where you are and at what point. The fact remains that there is no operator that will not want to provide stable service, because if you don't have good service, it has an impact on not just on your image as an organization, it has also an impact on the purpose of which you are in service. And so none of us will provide poor quality services as a matter of choice. But the circumstances of the operating environment sometimes mitigate against being able to deliver good quality of service. And this is why I think government needs to do a bit more in what they do. Abuja, for example, part of the problems in Abuja is that we don't have enough capacity. We have not been able to do more in Abuja, again, because of the behavior of people who run FCD, the revenue agencies there. I think they are the advertising collectors in Abuja. It's made it difficult to do anything there. And our regulator had intervened, our minister had intervened. But where money is involved, it tends to blind people from reality. And this certainly has an impact on quality of service across the country.
Two issues to follow up on. You talked about Abuja. Well, I'm in Lagos, and we'll talk about the Lagos angle. But when you said lack of capacity for Abuja, what does that mean exactly? What kind of capacity is lacking?
We are unable to upgrade sites because the agency that is not granting approval to upgrade sites. We're not able to deploy new telecom sites because the agency that is not granting approval. Demands they are making on the rate there is extremely high. It has no basis in reality. And this has impact on ability to deploy adequate capacity to support Abuja. Then what's going on now in Kogi State has an impact on, potential impact on 10 states, including Abuja itself.
It's no doubt important to talk about your working environment, and that's a major part of the conversation. But for the average subscriber, they want, the best quality of service because they are paying, in fact, for that service. But the challenge now is, yes, those issues persist on the side of the service provider, but there is no communication. If there's anything, I've had to actually look through, the messages I receive from my service provider, which most times I just, sometimes ignore because sometimes they're repetitive. But I've had to look through just to see if there's been some sort of explanation. Now, this is not 1 day, this is not 2 days, over 4 days, to see if there's some form of explanation or maybe apology or something, but nothing.
As I said, it depends on the point of impact. If there is no citywide outage or there is no location-based outage, it's a bit difficult to announce that you have a problem in this location. You have pockets of outages here and there that has a secondary impact somewhere, and that's the experience. But I think what you have said as feedback, maybe we need to do a bit more in terms of keeping the public informed. But also, you don't want to create panic to the people because once you say to someone, you have a problem of outage in your area, it tends to congest the network. People will then start calling, making calls that they don't have to call and all of that. But the fact remains that we all must take ownership of the national telecom network. We must take ownership, both as individuals and as government. And we must help operators to do better. We set out to provide good quality service, but certainly it's at some point the behavior of government often compromises our ability to do so. And I think this is the bigger issue that we need to talk about.
Well, it's instructive when you say that you've tried to take the issue up with the ministry that supervises your members and as well as the direct agency NCC concerned, and nothing has been done. I'm wondering, what are the next steps then? What are the other options open both to the telecom operators and the telecom subscribers?
Well, let me take, for example, this experience that we have in Kogi State. We had written to the governor of Kogi State. We had appealed. Our minister had intervened. Our regulator had intervened. Nothing is happening. So what we've decided to do in Kogi now is that once the site's powered down, we will not do anything. Because if you don't have access to the site to refuel, you don't have access to the site to do maintenance. Once systems go down, it goes down, we can't do anything. We just keep our hands up and say, oh, that we have tried. So let government resolve it. So
is government, in your opinion, my apologies, Engineer Adebayo, is the reverberating consequences of that which might happen from what you're saying, are the consequences really understood? Because, we know of several times when a telecom cell shuts down, there is insecurity, people can't be reached, people can't be helped for hours, sometimes for days. Is that implication understood?
That's the message we are driving. They need to take away the revenue objective because in most cases this is done for reasons of IGR in those states. They must take away that and look at the greater good. That's the message that we are driving actually. Because when you impact on sales side, you think you are penalizing the service provider. You're actually penalizing the citizens of your state. That's the message we are driving actually.
Well, there are those, Engineer Adebayo, who also say that it's not just about the issues that you have raised now that's responsible for these dropped calls and service infidelity. There are those who also allege that the fact that less than 10% of the sector has local content and indigenous participation is also an issue. You want to speak to that? I know it's a big issue that you're aware of.
No. I beg to disagree. I beg to disagree. If there is any industry that embraces local content, I think we do it more in telecoms than other sectors of the economy. I completely disagree with that. And there are statistics to that effect.
So how come then there are those issues that are being raised concerning mobile international termination rates and all of that, and it's becoming bigger in some quarters than necessary? There are those who also allege that.
And again, those are commercial issues. Those are commercial issues, and they don't have impact on technical quality of services. Those are commercial issues that people will talk about when their commercial interest is affected. But in terms of the main core, which is the quality of services, we face more of interference issues than these issues of commercial termination rate or no termination rate. So in terms of the problem that we face, we have more problems in our operating environment than we do have on issues of commercial exchange between players.
We're winding down now, and I'd like to take both of you as we wind down. First, Engineer, is there the possibility or are there plans to increase tariff based on, the operating costs for service provider? I see Chief is protesting here, but let's just hear from you. With the environment, cost of diesel and all of that, are there still plans to increase tariff?
There are no such plans. We guarantee that there will continue to be service availability to all citizens in all places at all time. We don't have any plans for tariff review. We are consulting with our regulator and others in government to see what kind of sustainability we can have for the industry. But we don't have any immediate plan to review public tariff.
But might there be maybe medium or long term? How long is this assurance for? Is it for a year, 2 years, or for as long as the...
As it stands today, I don't know the dynamics that will be from tomorrow, but as it stands today, we don't have such plans. I don't know what will be dynamics tomorrow. I don't know what will be the indices of the economy tomorrow. I can only speak about what we know and what we see for today.
Well, Engineer Adebayo, as soon as I asked that question, Chief in the studio was protesting. So let me get your thoughts, really. So, I mean, even personally, as I asked the question, I was expecting a no. But, what is the thinking?
Tariff
really?
increase is a no till infinity. However, I must say that government, all, particularly state governments and even federal government, see the revenue to be derived from telecom companies as to overtax them out of giving us good quality service. And I quite agree with Engineer Adebayo, it is affecting telecom services. Beyond that is the fact that governments, the moment they want to get 1 or 2 more revenue, let's look at the telecom sector, rather than seeing it as a serious service that the Nigerian populace need. They should go beyond seeing it as a revenue earner and seeing it as something that comforts Nigerians, their businesses, to communicate and all that. They should see telecom services to benefit Nigerians only, not as a revenue generation for governments.
Well, but you don't see any possibility, Engineer, that, Chief Ogbaja, that, these guys, they're in business as well. And cost of doing business is getting a little more unbearable for them. Cost of diesel, as my colleague said, you don't think we want to be a little sympathetic. It's just half kobo increase. Just, just say, don't answer anymore.
No.
Well, I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of our conversation this morning. Engineer Benga Adebayo, Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, Alton. He joined us virtually from Lekki, as well as Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo, National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NACOMS. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
So we're back after now to, of course, my colleague already teased it. We want to talk security. What do we do next? Stay with us.